Hello, my name's Russell Preston Brown from Adobe Systems, and I'm here to introduce a great new series here on Adobe TV called Take Flight into the Adobe Creative Cloud. This is a series of tutorials that show you how to work with quadcopters, lightweight quadcopters with little tiny cameras on them that you can take into the sky and take panoramas. Because this series is all about shooting panoramas with these small, lightweight cameras. In this case, we have a GoPro Hero 3, and in this case, we have a DJI Phantom Vision camera that's built into the system. Take it into the sky, and I'm rotating the camera around and taking multiple images and then stitching them together here inside of Adobe Photoshop. And in this series, I'm going to demonstrate how to stitch these together to get rid of, for example, the distortion that comes from these really wide-angle lensed cameras that you find on the market today. So with some great lens profiles, some tips and techniques in Photoshop, you too can make some great panoramas. And I'll take you through this process of bringing these images together, using these profiles, and then exporting your images out that you can share on places like Facebook. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to share some of your examples that you create after you've followed through my series of tutorials and share those with me. And the best way to do that is to search for Russell Preston Brown, the full name, on Facebook and share them on my Facebook page. And then I'll write you back and thank you for watching my series of tutorials. So as I said, this is all about panoramas in this series, stitching these panoramas together. And I'd just like to point out some of the hardware that you might be using to shoot these panoramas. Most people, when they shoot video, will shoot video with a stabilized system. Watch how this camera moves on this gyroscopic pivot called a gimbal. It's really, really cool. Now, this is for video photography, and it stabilizes the video photography so they get really smooth gliding movement through the sky. But for my particular project here on Adobe TV, I'm going to be using unstabilized cameras to shoot all the panoramas that you see here. And it's a great way to start because you don't have the expense of an additional gimbal or this stabilization. As you can see in this camera, the camera's attached to this DJI Phantom Vision system, and the camera can move up and down, but it's not stabilized like that one was. Now, the beauty of working with Photoshop is that if the wind is blowing this in the sky, it may be tilting it in this fashion. But when you get inside of Photoshop and you start to stitch the images together, like I'm doing here, the process of stitching them will eliminate that fluctuation and change in the pitch and yaw of your camera in the sky. And you'll have the ability to then straighten out your horizon, and that's the types of tips and techniques that you'll see in this series. One of the things I want to point out as well, sometimes these systems come with the ability to actually monitor what you're seeing in the sky on a screen that's attached to your radio controller, as you see here. When I first started taking panoramas, I did it blind. I had no way of seeing what's in the sky, and you got a sort of a sense as you went up into the sky, you could have a sense of where you were and you start to take the photographs. So again, as you're first starting with this process and you want to learn the process in an economical way, I'd say perhaps that the ability to actually monitor what's on the sky isn't as important as getting a nice picture, get up there and get some results immediately, and then progress toward more and more equipment and more money that you invest into this process. And you can see there's a monitor here, and you also have the ability to use a system called a Fat Shark where you actually get to look into the sky. Now this one really blows my mind because I have a tough time looking through this type of a monitor and trying to steer at the same time because my spatial sense doesn't like the blindness of those goggles, not knowing where my particular aircraft is in the sky. So different types of equipment, I say start slowly Buy the least expensive copter that you can, the least expensive camera combination, get up into the air, take photographs, and follow through my series of tips and techniques and tutorials. Now, let me give you some of my official Russell Preston Brown rules of flight. Rule number 1, never fly around people. It's just important not to hit anyone, and it's also important not to be interrupted. When you're flying, it's so confusing to be in the air, you don't want people asking you questions. Rule number 2, don't fly around animals. I've seen people chasing animals with these things. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. And rule number 3, don't fly around automobiles. These things can fall out of the sky at any time they want. And finally, rule number 4, never fly near an airport. It's just not logical. Put your brain on full speed. Think about the logics of where you are. No people, no animals, no airplanes, no cars, and a really great location where you can take the time to get a really great panorama. So that's it. Follow through this series. I hope to see your results on Facebook. Thanks so much.